Well, let's discuss this with Carole Easton, Chief Executive at the Centre for Ageing Better. Carole, I was making the point earlier that, I think it's dangerous when we look at any cohort in society and typecast them as all having opportunities or disadvantages. And there will be a great many pensioners who live in £1 million houses and frankly don't need as much support as they're getting. But I would imagine the proportion of those who do require support from the state and things like free TV licences and bus travel is significantly higher.
It's absolutely right, Holly. What concerns me listening is that we describe millions of people as if they're all the same. The reality is that we know that more than 2 million pensioners are living in poverty today, and that number is growing because the people most likely to be in poverty in this country are aged between 60 and 65. So I'm very pleased if some of our MPs on both sides of the House are in comfortable positions, but they shouldn't generalise and make that about everyone. And they also shouldn't use language like codgers about all old people. Young people wouldn't like being called snowflakes. Older people are varied and diverse and don't deserve to be described as one homogenous group of people.
Totally right. The reason that pensioners were given free TV licences is because, as you said, a significant number of pensioners, older people, are not wallowing in money like Sir Edward Troup seems to feel. He's a pensioner and I'm sure he is wallowing in money. He used to be chief of the HMRC, the tax department. I'm sure he's got a sweet deal for his pension. But the point is, the reason pensioners are given breaks like free TV licences is a significant number of pensioners have to survive only on their state pension. That really isn't very much money, is it? What is it, 200 quid a week or something? That's why they get help. It isn't true that every pensioner has some sweet deal from the massive job that they used to do, right?
The inequalities in income, in wealth, are biggest within generations. So, there's very wealthy older people and there's very, very poor older people. There's very wealthy younger people and very wealthy and very poor younger people as well. So it's really important that we don't pit one generation against another. And in terms of the TV license, older people, disabled people, very much will rely on their television. And so the importance of making sure that the poorest people have access to very basic things in their lives and are not stigmatized in trying to receive those is really important.
What do you think are some of the most sort of punitive bits of government policy when it comes to pensioners?
Well, we hope at the Centre for Ageing Better that the pension age review, which is currently going on, looking at whether the pension age should go up. And our concern about the pension age continuing to rise is that it increases the number of people in poverty unless we look at whether people are able to stay in work, whether they're able to add to their pension pots. So the pension is low. We have a very low pension here compared to many other European countries. And also, we need to ensure that we are enabling people to be helped to stay in work that allows them to increase their pension pot for when they do retire from paid work.
Carole, no one is denying that younger people, it's a struggle for them, possibly more difficult for young people now than when I was young, which was about 4 centuries ago. Don't you find it annoying that young people sort of blame old people for the old people who are comfortable, own their own homes, the people who've done quite well in life? The younger generation who are struggling, oh, it's your fault. It's your fault. Baby boomers, it's your fault that we're having such a hard time. That kind of attitude, sort of us v them, young people versus old people, it's got to stop, isn't it? Don't you find that annoying?
I don't know that it's young people that are doing that, because the young people that I speak to and read about are concerned about their parents, their grandparents, and the lives that some of them may be required to lead. And it isn't about, I think this intergenerational divide is being what's the word, given energy. And I don't think it's real. I think the older people are concerned about the lives of younger people and vice versa. And we don't solve the inequalities in wealth, the inequalities in housing by taking from one to give to the other. Economy doesn't work like that. Society doesn't work like that. And there's so much that can happen in our society that benefits everyone. So if we think about childcare costs, for example, that would benefit younger people. It also benefits older people like me who have to play a role in childcare. So I think this intergenerational divide is something of a making of the media and sometimes of politicians as well.
And, Carole, people like Sir Edward Troup, who are stirring up a divisive pot, aren't they? They really are.
Yes, he's not the first politician to do that. And absolutely, I would say, and we would say at the centre, that it's really important that we have a society that looks at the inequalities that exist, whatever the age. Age is not the issue. Inequalities in wealth, in resources, in opportunities are the issue.
I would imagine, actually, that the last few years have probably been some of the toughest in recent history when it comes to pensioners and their quality of life. And I'm thinking about the isolation during COVID, the extra fear that older people must have had of that virus, and then swiftly followed on by sky-high energy bills. I mean, pensioners must have been really struggling.
Again, let's not call pensioners all the same. Some pensioners probably fine, and if they have access to resources and things. But yes, there are growing numbers of pensioners whom worry us hugely, where they've become very isolated, where they're making the decisions between heating or eating, so that COVID and then the cost of living crisis and the increasing number of people, older people, who are now renting, so that their rental costs have gone up. So absolutely, the image that all pensioners are living in kind of land of glory is absolutely untrue.
Do you worry, Carole, that there is a lack of respect these days for the older generation?
I think the use of ageist language, unfortunately, is very common. And certainly, I would challenge everyone to stop and think about the language that they use to describe older people. Codger's one example. Even statements like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, or you're too old to do that, all imply a dismissal and a devaluing of older people. Yes.
Yeah, and do you know, I actually think women, without sort of turning this into a whole sexism debate, I actually do think older women have it much worse. When you look at the broadcasting industry, if you're a man, you can creak on until you're about 90. If you're a woman, you're in the dustbin of broadcasting history by the age of about 55.
I honestly think, Carole, that this country in particular, we have a weird, like I lived in America for a long time, and Americans really respect older people. You look at new TV anchors, as they call them over there, they're all like in their 70s. Because they look up to people.
Look at their presidents.
They look, yeah, well, there you go. The president, is very old. They look up to older people. They respect them. Here, it's the opposite, I find.
True.
I mean, I've had a couple of relatives, old relatives have died recently, and had to go through the healthcare system. And basically, doctors, nurses were just dismissive of them. It's like, well, you're going anyway. Come on, you're 85. Come on, you've had a good innings. They really, and I was going, come on. What are you going to do about it? Oh, it doesn't matter. They seemed very diffident about my relatives, old relatives, because they were old.
I think ageism and ageist attitudes even start amongst children in this country. So there's something going on in our society which means, as you say, that older people are seen very negatively, not seen in advertisements, even though they're a large part of our market, discriminated against at work, which is really serious, because then people cannot get jobs. And it comes back to what we were talking about before, that if you're experiencing ageism in the workplace, you're more likely to be poor as you get older. You're more likely then to have health conditions. So all these things interact, and what might seem like quite trivial ageism in the beginning actually has potentially very serious impacts on people's health, well-being, and opportunities as they get older.
Thank you very much, Carole. That was
thanks,
excellent.
Carole.
Thank you. Good to talk to you.